In July 1978, a Russian scientist, Anatoly Bugorsky, had the job of testing faulty equipment at what was the most powerful particle accelerator at the time, the U-70 in the Soviet Union. In this device, electron beams, protons, and heavy ions were accelerated and collided. On one occasion, in order to detect a malfunction, Anatoly thrust his head into the accelerator and a proton beam penetrated through it. The proton beam entered the left side of the scientist's head and exited through the left side of his nose. According to Anatoly, at that moment he saw a flash 1,000 times brighter than the sun, but he did not feel pain. When the scientist was taken to the hospital, the entire left side of his face was swollen and the skin began to peel off. Russian doctors were convinced that Bugorsky was dying after receiving a huge dose of radiation from the particles. But despite the paralysis of the left side of his face, radiation sickness, and a small hole in his head, the scientist miraculously survived and even defended his doctoral dissertation in physics. Technologies have made a huge leap forward since those times, hence the logical question arises: what would happen if someone were to shove some part of their body, such as an arm, into the most powerful and modern particle accelerator? The U-70 is now considered a very weak accelerator compared to modern technology. Its strength is less than 1% of the Large Hadron Collider, inside which the protons travel around the 17-mile loop only 7 miles or 11 kilometers an hour slower than the speed of light. Then they hit each other with incredible force. According to some scientists, small black holes can appear in space due to particles colliding at this speed. Despite their small size, their gravity is enough to slowly but eventually absorb the mass of the entire Earth. Of course, a lot of energy is required to accelerate a beam of 100 billion protons to near light speed. Approximately as much energy as it takes to get a 400-ton train racing along the rails at a speed of 100 miles or 161 kilometers per hour. This power is enough to drill a hole in a 100-foot or 30-meter thick piece of copper within milliseconds. It is for these reasons that the boosters are located deep underground to ensure that nearby cities will not be bombarded by particles. You probably already get the idea that placing a hand inside of a particle accelerator, after all that has been said, sounds like a really bad idea. But let's ignore all the dangers and just do it. The first problem you might encounter will be with your ears. If the beam strays, it can strike the bone matter that makes up your jaw, which will become a conductor for the beam. So every sound will seem so loud as if it's coming from a concert speaker. Scientists have proved this during an experiment, directing the energy of protons at a graphite block. If you translate the result into sound, you'll get an explosion equivalent to about 200 pounds or 91 kilograms of TNT, enough to tear the eardrums in an instant. Therefore, it's better to make sure you have good earplugs if they're even able to help in this case. Although your broken eardrums will seem like a trifle compared to the power of the beam. When you put your hand into the accelerator, the protons will easily go right through, as if there's no obstacle in their path. In turn, you also will not feel anything because the grouping of protons is very thin. A beam of rays can easily pierce your bones. In this case, the hand will remain fully functional, but only if you keep it completely motionless. Then, fewer particle beams will interact with your body, and you'll stand a better chance of avoiding serious injury. After all, Anatoly Bugorsky was saved only by the fact that the U-70 accelerator fired only one proton shot. Due to this, the Russian scientist got a single hole in his head and managed to survive. But the Large Hadron Collider makes 3,000 such shots in just 2 seconds. Therefore, any sudden movement of the hand can result in the proton beam cutting it in half. Even if you manage to hold your hand still for a while, it's unlikely that you can protect yourself from another, more frightening danger. Indeed, because of the enormous velocity, particles in the collider emit intense radiation. Even at a distance of several hundred yards from the proton beam, you can be exposed to a significant dose of radiation, similar to what you would get with a full-chest X-ray. However, it's very difficult to calculate the exact level of the potential radiation exposure. The beam itself carries enough radiation to kill you. However, the vast majority of radiation will simply pass by through the hand without even touching it. This may seem strange to you since the hand is a solid object that it would seem radiation exposure cannot precisely circumvent. However, at the atomic level, there's a lot of empty space inside your hand. If you increase the atoms of your hand to the size of a football field, then its core will be a small seat in the stands. In order to kill you quickly, the radiation needs to get into the core. Therefore, radiation exposure will destroy you slowly, but with pain and suffering. Although, given the fact that Bugorsky almost died in the Accelerator, whose power is only 1% of the power of the LHC, the huge dose of radiation that you would get in the Hadron Collider should lead to certain death. The radioactive particles absorbed into your hand will spread throughout your body, with the result that you will receive a lethal dose of 1,000 X-rays, 10 SV. Then about the same thing will happen to your body that 2 workers at the Tokaimura nuclear plant in Japan experienced after the 1999 accident. Hisashi Ouchi and Masato Shinohara prepared a small portion of nuclear fuel and had an accidental spill with the ingredients, receiving a critical dose of radiation. Exposure victims do not always feel terrible right away, as symptoms may appear after a few hours. However, in the case of Ouchi, Shinohara, and you, given the hand placed in the collider, there will be no delay. Symptoms will be felt immediately. As the beam pierces your arm, the whole world around you will turn blue because the radiation will pass through the fluid in your eyes at the speed of light. Since the speed of light in liquids is 30% slower than in a vacuum, this generates special electromagnetic waves that glow blue. This is the so-called Cherenkov effect. Ouchi and Shinohara also encountered this at the time of their accident. According to their stories after the accident, the whole room suddenly turned blue. At the same time, security cameras did not record any color changes. In addition to the distorted color perception, you will experience unbearable heat, despite the fact that the temperature in the room remains unchanged. The proton energy will just warm up your body temperature a little bit. You will feel sick because the dose of radiation will cause stomach cramps. In addition, your skin will burn badly. You'll begin to choke and perhaps lose consciousness. Meanwhile, the white blood cell leukocyte count in your blood will drop to almost 0. Without them, the immune system will stop working, and a variety of infections can easily attack your internal organs. In the future, perhaps doctors will be able to save you from the diseases caused by the failure of immunity, but they will not be able to return the health of your irradiated internal organs, and depending on the dose of radiation, you will die between 4 and 8 weeks after exposure. The only good news is that the hole in your hand will have time to heal during this period and only a small scar will remain. Based on all that has been said, you probably already guessed which part of the body you do not want to shove into a particle accelerator. The result can only be one thing: a painful and suffering death. However, even the Large Hadron Collider will soon be superseded by an even more powerful competitor. By 2030, Chinese scientists plan to build a new particle accelerator with a circumference of 62 miles or 100 kilometers and a power of 1 million electron volts. Imagine what will happen to a person if they get too close to such a death machine. In how many seconds will they die? And most importantly, what important scientific discoveries will the new Hadron Collider make? Write your thoughts on this in a comment. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Click on the bell to be the first to know about new videos. And stay with us because the most interesting is yet to come.